And now, Good Micro Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
Happy Saturday, everyone. What is going on? And welcome. Happy weekend to you. This is our Winged Eagle podcast for October 21st, 2023. And we got a lot to get into today, a fairly loaded episode. It's going to be kind of news heavy. And we also have to catch up on some AEW and WWE stuff from TV this week. Dynamite and SmackDown last night specifically. Also look ahead to tonight's big AEW Collision and Battle of the Belts. Going to be 3 hours of wrestling tonight. And we're going to be looking even further ahead to Crown Jewel and Full Gear as these cards begin to take shape. And it's been a pretty interesting and fun week in wrestling. So we're here to talk about it all today. Thank you again for coming up here 30 minutes early. There are going to be some Saturdays where I come up here a little bit earlier than the scheduled time. Today is one of those days. So was last week. Thank you to everyone who was here hanging out and waiting for me. Hopefully it's been a great weekend so far for you guys. And we got a big next couple of days of streaming coming up as we will be here tomorrow night watching WCW Halloween Havoc 1994. That's going to be our classic watch along for tomorrow night. Last week we watched Halloween Havoc 1993, which was one of the most star-studded cards I had seen in quite a while. Tomorrow, maybe not so much, but still really interesting times in WCW since Hogan had just been there for a few months, and this was billed as one of Ric Flair's many retirement matches. So we're going to take a look at that tomorrow night. And then on Monday, we will be back here again after Monday Night Raw to talk about whatever we see on that show. But today, we've got some wrestling news to get into, like the return of Randy Orton. We have some news on Ace Steel, some news on Brock Anderson, Lacey Evans. We also have some rumors of possible new WWE Tag Team Championship belts. I've been talking about that ever since WrestleMania, that they either need to consolidate things or break them back up, whatever they intend on doing with them. Something needs to be simplified there. It looks like that is in the process of now finally happening as some belts were screen and photo tested. We will talk about that and what that could mean. We'll also look ahead to Survivor Series and War Games, talk a little bit about CM Punk, maybe a little bit more on Vince McMahon, and also detail this past Wednesday's very busy Dynamite. Sting has set a date. Well, he set a location or a pay-per-view location. I don't think there's a date or location set yet for Revolution next year, but we will talk about Sting's retirement, the circumstances surrounding that, and how he could potentially go out. I think the obvious way is to lose to Darby, but maybe there's other things they can do. You never know. So we'll talk about Sting and his retirement, wrapping up nearly a 40-year career. Incredible. And there was a whole lot going on Dynamite this week, as it seems like everybody and their mother is gunning for MJF and his championship. So Dynamite was very interesting this week. And last night's SmackDown, I got to say, much like last week, was also very fun. We didn't get a ton of wrestling on SmackDown last night, but what we did get was quality. That Io Sky and Charlotte main event was spectacular. And much like last week where we had like the confrontations, the LA Knight and Roman, Cody and Roman, Jade and Charlotte, this was kind of similar in that it was just about a lot of talking. There was Paul and Rey Mysterio, John Cena talking about his potential retirement, LA Knight and Paul Heyman. And let me see, they did something else too last night on SmackDown, but there was just kind of a lot of talking and a lot of entertaining stuff and not quite as much wrestling, but I didn't mind that because I enjoyed everything that I saw from SmackDown last night as I did Dynamite this week. So we're going to be kind of talking about all that. We'll be looking ahead to the pay-per-views this Monday's Raw and anything else you guys want to talk about this afternoon. So thank you for being here. Do me a favor and smash that thumbs up button for me. And if you are not a subscriber, I would love it if you would click that subscribe button. We are just a little bit over 200 subscribers away from 40,000. We are getting there ever so closely or slowly, but we will reach there very soon. So make sure you like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And we will start getting into the wrestling news. Before we do that, let me cruise to the chat, say hello to people who might be hanging out. Move this so I can see it a little bit better. I want to shout out the channel members first, do our best with that, like say hello to Tatanani. We got Financial Truth Academy up in here. We got Zach and the Juliet as well. Good to see you guys. Isaac is here. We have Luke McAllister chiming in with the $10. Thank you so much for that super chat, Luke. Hey, Greg, great to hear Randy Orton's return is imminent as he is a true legend and somebody I grew up watching. Also, do you think Sting's last match will be a tag team match And does he perhaps win? We're going to talk about all of that. I wouldn't rule out a Sting tag match, but I think Sting can go on his own. This isn't like a Ric Flair situation, who Ric Flair can't even stay vertical or stay awake, during a match at this stage in his life. So they kind of had to do a tag with him. Even though Sting is going to be having his retirement match just days ahead of his 65th birthday, I still think Sting can do a one-on-one match. And, obviously Sting is old school. He's likely going to want to go out on his back. But hell, maybe they could even do something a little bit more fun, and he could be somebody who wins his last match. Depending on who his opponent is, that's the big factor there. But yeah, we'll talk about all of the different scenarios, but I kind of have a feeling what I think they're going to do. But maybe we can talk about other ways, because I noticed on social media almost immediately after Sting announced his retirement or his upcoming retirement, all of a sudden everybody's got to just weigh in on this. And this is how he should go out, and he should retire this way. First of all, it's not up to us how he goes out. But second of all, there's not just one way to do things. And that's the way it seems like wrestling fans think nowadays. It can only be this way and no other way. No, there's ways to make a win or a loss work. In my opinion, Sting should probably go out on his back, yes. But if you wanted to book him to win, there are ways to do that benefits, more than just Sting. Imagine if he got in the ring with, let's say, like Nick Wayne, who is 11 years old. How old is Nick Wayne? 12, 13? Sting could get in the ring with him, beat the shit out of him, and pin him and win. And think about the rub that this kid now gets to have for the rest of his career that could span another 30 plus years. He gets to be the guy that had Sting's final match and talk about that for the next 3 decades that he wrestles. That's a pretty good rub for some young kid. But, I still think losing is probably the best way to go, but I'm just not dead set on it. I just don't believe I've been watching wrestling long enough to know that when you just believe there's one way and one way only to do things, that's when you're just not a very fun wrestling fan. So we'll talk about the possibilities of Sting's retirement later and what he might do. But thank you, as always, Luke, for being here. Good to see Brandon McNeil in the house as well. And I think that rounds out the channel members. So I'll backtrack now and say hi to Ben Espinoza, Mike Rouse, Gilbert. We got Jonelli up in here. Jonelle, excuse me. We have Rodrigo, Doug, Unfunny. Thank God Bailey saved the day. What do you mean with her shorts? I heard a lot of people talking about that. Thirsty people on Twitter. We have Ben, I think I did get you. I think I got everybody. Rodrigo, yeah. Andy Linnell, good to see you as well. David Brown is in the house. Right on. Good to see you guys. Happy Saturday, happy weekend. And in case this is a small audience, which it might be today, thumbs up button, all that jazz. You guys know what to do. Why don't we, since we talked about already what you're going to hear from me or see from me this weekend, Halloween Havoc 1994 watch along tomorrow, and then Monday night we'll be up here for a Raw review after the show. But let's talk about wrestling news. We kind of have a lot of it. Nothing is earth-shattering for once. This is nice. I actually do have a few things I could say about CM Punk and Vince McMahon, but we've spent so much time on both of those guys over the past forever that really anything I was going to talk about today wasn't really newsworthy. It was just more of elaboration on what I've already talked about, with some of the rumors of CM Punk being denied by WWE and all of that stuff. Nothing there has really changed. WWE was not and adamant that they were not in talks with him, but everything is open to change. Everything can change. You never know what happens down the line. WWE's business, as we've seen, has been hitting pretty hard here. And with the Survivor Series coming up in Chicago, I think WWE wants to concentrate on making that a huge show. And I'm hoping we get a mega huge War Games match on that show. And if there's no chance of CM Punk coming in, I'm glad WWE is getting the word out there that they're not talking to him. Now, next year, if he wants to show up in the Royal Rumble or whatever, that's fine. But in terms of the immediate future, Survivor Series being a target date for a CM Punk WWE return, I'm of the belief that that's not going to happen. And as I said several months back too, or several weeks back as it pertained to that, WWE runs Chicago all the time. Much like AEW, Chicago is a big market for WWE. They're there multiple times a year. So Punk not being at Survivor Series isn't the end of the world. They're going to be coming around to Chicago probably for another pay-per-view next year. You got all the time in the world if you want to set up a Punk return in Chicago if you're WWE. It's not just one and done after Survivor Series. You're going to go back and go back and go back and go back and go back. So you got plenty of time to bring in Mr. Phil. Mr. Mustache Man, I think Vince McMahon is going to be permanently out of the creative picture, and that just makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. I can't tell you how happy I am about that. But let's stick with WWE and talk about Randall Orton. Randy Orton is on his way back. His return is imminent. A lot of people have been speculating about an Orton return for many, many months now. A couple of weeks back, he was videoed leaving the WWE PC. So clearly he's back in the ring, working out, rehabbing, getting ready. Hopefully, I don't know how long he's been gone now, over a year, right? It's been a while since Randy Orton has taken that time off. And now that he is set for a return, I'm excited to see him. I've always had, much like Cena, I've always had Randy Orton's back. I know there were plenty of years there where he had heat, from the fans and, maybe even some of his peers in the back with his behavior and all of that. But he really grew and matured to be a great wrestling veteran. And I've loved him in his later stages of his career. Like the last 10 years of Randy Orton has been, maybe last 8, I would say, has been quite good. I've really always enjoyed Randy Orton. And if he has enough left in the tank to come back here for one more good run, that's exciting. Now, here's a tweet from WrestleVotes yesterday on the Randy Orton return rumors. And I quote, regarding the Randy Orton return, source states new merchandise and branding has been approved. Also, WWE will present a large social media promotion/digital material for the comeback. It's indeed happening, likely Survivor Series or that weekend. So what do you guys think would be best for a Randy Orton return? Like, do we really, fans have gotten a lot really uppity lately about surprises and stuff. Why would they ruin the surprise? You don't always have to have a surprise. I like what they've done with Jade Cargill. Fans think that she has to debut in the Rumble or just do a surprise run in. No, not always. Sometimes that's fun when somebody debuts or returns, but it doesn't have to happen all the time. And with Randy Orton, he's been in the company for 20 years. It's not like it's going to be a shock if he returns. It's not like he left the company and has resigned or anything like that. So, and we also know that he's healthy. He's been videoed outside of the PC. He's been in the headlines, in the wrestling sheets and things like that. He's on everybody's radar. So Randy Orton coming out as a surprise, how much of a surprise is it going to be? We all know he's coming back. So maybe they're going to promote his return. The Viper returns in 2 weeks on Raw. What brand is he on? I don't even know what brand he's on. He might not have been drafted. I actually don't know where. Help me, y'all. Help me, Forrest. Where is Randy Orton? What brand is he supposed to be? I think Raw, but shit, I don't know. So you could promote that, pop a rating. Raw needs it right now. They're up against Monday Night Football, putting on great shows and still struggling in the ratings because they got fucking football. More evidence that they might actually leave Mondays in the future with the new TV deal coming up next year. So Randy Orton being announced to return could be fun. There's nothing wrong with that. Let everybody know he's coming back in a couple of weeks so we can all tune in. Or perhaps he can be added to some sort of a War Games match here. Because we're going to talk about War Games later when we talk about SmackDown. But I really, really hope, and we'll talk later about Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce. I'm really hoping they're not setting up for a Raw versus SmackDown War Games match because I do not give 3 raccoon turds about brand supremacy. It's ridiculous that we should care, especially since WWE has never treated the draft or the brand split, seriously ever at all. I've always rolled my eyes. We always have rolled our eyes at the brand supremacy Survivor Series, the red shirts versus the blue shirts. It's stupid. And now that Vince is gone, let's hope that Triple H isn't that fucking stupid. But with Aldis and Pearce already kind of button heads 1 week into Aldis's debut in the company, are they really going to try to set up something Raw versus SmackDown? I'd rather see a combination of Bloodline and Judgment Day members taking on a bunch of baby faces. That's what I'd rather see. So if that's the case, well, actually, regardless of which option they do, if it's going to be Raw and SmackDown, which I hope it's not, or if it's going to be Judgment Day, Bloodline versus baby faces, that could be where Randy Orton fits in, especially if the baby faces need one more guy, Cody, Sammy, Jay, Owens, and Orton, something like that. I don't know. But Randy Orton coming in and being a part of that could be interesting. Or they might want to bring him back and put him right in a program with somebody. Who that somebody is, I don't know. Either way, I'm excited to see the Viper return. Hopefully it will be at Survivor Series or around that time. And we've got Randy Orton fresh and good and ready to rock for WrestleMania season. Hopefully, I'm not welcoming him back prematurely, but I figured I would do that anyway. Welcome back, Randy Orton. Can't wait to see you. Our friend Ace Steel, our chair-throwing, biting machine, has been reported to be brought in to Bound for Glory weekend for Impact. So he's going to be working Bound for Glory weekend as a producer in a tryout role for Impact. So there has been some talks about CM Punk maybe making an appearance for Impact. That would just blow my mind if he did do that. But maybe Ace Steel coming in, having a good showing. They decide to retain his services. He stays on as a producer, and maybe he gets CM Punk in there to give them a little boost. You know, Impact could really use the rub from a CM Punk. So maybe it's something Punk wants to do prior to. Maybe he wants to go to Impact to show WWE that he's willing to do business and work with people and work in small environments and, and work, in the small time, just to have them take notice and say, okay, maybe Phil's a changed man. Let's bring him in. Maybe that would be part of his PR stunt to try to get into WWE. Hey, I'm going to go work in Impact and just show them, what I'm willing to do. The only reason things didn't work out with me in AEW was because of the elite and the guys who can't manage a target or whatever. So maybe that's something Phil will do. I'd love it if he did that. So best of luck to Ace Steel in his Impact tryout. This is a guy that's already worked in WWE and AEW, so I don't know why he would need to try out for Impact, considering, all the years of him being a trainer and a coach and whatnot. But he's in a tryout producer role there this weekend, or for Bound for Glory weekend, and we wish him the best of luck. We have an AEW departure. Brock Anderson, apparently gone from AEW. He's been removed from their roster page. I don't know what the status of Arn Anderson is in the company. I would love to see the two of them hop back to WWE, or at least Arn and maybe Brock Anderson. Now, Brock Anderson, he looks a lot like his dad. That look was phenomenal in the 80s. I don't know what that look can really get him now. I think for Anderson to, be a major player here, he needs to work on his presence and his size and his physique and his build and that type of stuff, and just keep working and training in the ring, I believe, if he wants to be serious at this, because right now he looks like one of my good buddies, Brett from North Carolina, who's about the same height, same hair, same face, same voice, everything. One of my best friends, but he's just way too plain and normal looking for me. And that really, really worked with Arn in the 80s because he had those short shorts and the hairy chest and the glasses and the Yankees hat. It was superb, but I don't know if Brock can really fill those shoes. So Brock Anderson, we don't know what his future is. Maybe they can bring him into the PC because Brian Pillman Jr. is there and he's set to debut as Lexus King. And Anderson and Pillman have some history. They have some history from the Four Horsemen. I will never forget. It still sticks out in my memory for some reason. There was I couldn't even tell you the date on this. It was a Nitro before Pillman obviously came to WWE, probably late 95 or whatever it was. And Pillman is kind of like he's a loose cannon. He's kind of fucking wild, and he's been hanging around the Horsemen. And Arn is trying to cut like a serious promo, and Pillman's in the background like jumping up and down or something. I don't know. I don't even remember the context of this promo, what it was even about. I just remember Arn just rearing back and slapping the piss out of Pillman and just bam. And it was just like, it looked like a shoot because the look on Pillman's face was like, holy shit, he legitimately looked afraid of Arn Anderson when he got smacked. He got the yellow smacked off his teeth. It was crazy. And I can't remember what it was even about, but it was during Pillman's his Pillman 911 stuff, I think, right before he was doing crazy shit and he left WCW and went to ECW and all that stuff. It was somewhere right before that was about to happen. And Arn just slapped the piss out of him. And I'll always remember that. I'm like, man, you put Brock Anderson and Pillman Jr. together, that could be interesting, especially if you did get Arn to come in. Maybe Arn Anderson shows back up on the main roster with his Denny's menu to coach Cody. You never know. You never know. But best of luck to Brock Anderson and Arn, because I guess we don't know what Arn's current status with AEW is, but looks like we have another departure there. Here's a story that I love. I can't wait to talk about this. Let me just catch up here. Let me knock out this super chat from our friend Jaquan and Jay Boba. Let me knock out these two because I like these guys. They're my friends. Hey, Greg, last night in my hometown, San Antonio, was my first ever My first time ever being able to watch a WWE show live in attendance, I got to see my idol, John Cena. Brother, I am so happy for you. That is wonderful. First time ever. Popped your cherry, huh? That's great. I love hearing stuff like that, especially when your idol is wrestling. You know, being able to go to your first WWE show or your first live event and seeing your favorite wrestler, I never got to do that. It's pretty cool, man. Very, very happy for you. Hope you had a blast in San Antonio. WWE swings through there every now and then. If you really want to have a blast, wait till they hit there for pay-per-view. Wait until the next Raw, SmackDown, or pay-per-view comes to San Antonio and hit up that show. That should be a blast. And I'm really glad you got to see John Cena. It's still kind of surreal and mind-blowing that he's just back. We know this isn't going to last forever. We know he's going to be gone soon. But just the fact that he's been back so regularly on TV, even working live events to the point where we're kind of getting used to him again, has been kind of nice. I'm not going to lie, but we know it's not going to last. Cena is going to be leaving us again soon, but I'm glad you got a chance to see him. That makes me really happy. Proud of you, man. Happy for you. Jay Bobe, appreciate the 5 from you. Hey, Greg, Darby will most likely be Sting's final opponent. Who else would you book to face Sting during his farewell tour? Edge, MJF, Jericho. You know, Sting's 64. I don't know how much of a farewell tour I want out of Sting, because one thing I don't want to happen is for him to get injured before his retirement. So I think Sting needs to take it easy. Maybe some tags, maybe some face-offs, maybe a match. You know, he might want to tag with Edge. I would do Edge, Sting versus Nick Wayne and Christian or something. Maybe leading up to that. We have Winter is coming up as well, probably, right? So I don't know, but we'll talk more about Sting when we get to that. But Darby obviously is going to be Sting's final opponent right before he climbs Everest and dies. So that is the logical option. I think that's who Sting would want to put over. But I'm open to them doing something else. I'm really indifferent about it. I like and respect Sting, and I want him to go out on his terms. I'm not going to really complain about whatever I see Sting do, because it's not about that. It's about Sting and his career and celebrating that. And to me, that's what's most important. But we will talk about the possibilities of Sting's opponents and retirement plan here in just a minute. Yo, Michael Cuomo. Just wanted to say hi. Saw you chiming in. Michael Cuomo is an OG, just like JJ and a few others here. Let's talk about this really fun story. It might be, I mean, it's not really that newsworthy, but I think it's newsworthy because these are like my favorite stories. We might be finally be getting some new WWE tag team titles. After Judgment Day regained the titles this past Monday on Raw, there's been lots of talks of a redesign. I've been talking about a belt redesign forever, because even before WrestleMania, when we were hearing rumors of new championship belts, Roman's yellow belt and Rhea's belt and Seth's belt, I was like, okay, so what are they going to do with the tags? They got to do something. They're still designed off that ugly 2011 penny-looking design, or whenever those came into existence. Those things are ugly as shit, man, and that design has been around for way, 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 way too long, and I've been dying for some new championships. Well, that might be happening soon. Cultaholic had a report on this, and I quote, "A source within WWE has revealed to Cultaholic Wrestling that possible new tag team title belt designs were photo and video tested during rehearsals ahead of the October 16th episode of Raw in Oklahoma City. The rehearsal was a title belt reveal over the course of 30 minutes. The titles were on a table in the middle of the ring with a production assistant removing the cloth to reveal them. 2 possible sets of new tag team title belts with radically different designs were tested. One set of belts was all gold with black straps." You know, I love that. That's the way I feel all belts should be. One set of belts was all gold with black straps. The other set that was screen tested featured a gold and silver design with 1 red and 1 blue strap. It is unknown if WWE plans to use both designs and split the tag team titles, or just use one of the designs and replace the current set of titles. It is also unknown when WWE could introduce one or both of the new designs, but our source indicated that it appeared they were in the early stages of final approval. So it sounds like they're testing these things, see how they look. The fact that there's 2 different belts designed makes me wonder what that's for. Are they seeing which ones they like better? There's like 3 options. They're either seeing which set of belts they like better, screen testing them, and Caught my pen, Mr. Perfect style. Yeah, just like that. They might just be screen testing them to see which ones they like, visually, and which ones they prefer. Or it could mean they're about to split the belts up again and have two sets of tag team titles, which I don't want. I saw a lot of people on social media saying, split the tag team titles up already. No, don't split the tag team titles up already. Because when we have one set of tag team titles, they really do feel important. Some of these tag team matches, the belt swapping lately with Owens and Zayn passing it to Judgment Day and them losing to Cody and Jay and winning it back, those have all been really, really good matches. And we've seen tag team titles featured in main events now and stuff. And I think that's really works better when you have one set. So even though the tag team division is pretty good, there's lots of teams, I don't want two sets of titles. So I vote no on that. So it either means that they're deciding which ones they like and they're going to keep the titles unified, or they're going to separate them back out, or one of them is for the women. Because if you read, it says one of the sets of belts had a red and a blue strap, and the other set was black with all gold or gold with all black. So maybe the red and blue one are the new men's tag team titles, and the black ones are the new women's. I mean, the women's titles don't really need a new design, but those belts have been through hell, man. What a great way to almost refresh or kind of hit a reset button, an unofficial reset on the women's tag team titles. Give them a new design, make them look better. Chelsea Green apparently has not defended her tag team titles in like 100 days. Somebody pointed out, I don't even know if that's accurate. And they're like, oh, what a joke. I'm like, that's not a joke. Chelsea not defending the titles has been the most entertaining thing they've done with those titles since they were created all those years ago. Those titles have been a complete goddamn joke, to the point where I don't even remember who has held these titles. Sometimes WWE will reference a former set of women's tag team champions, and I'm like, I don't even remember them being friends, much less winning the tag team titles together. I have that championship history, and its run so far in the company has been incredibly forgettable and a complete joke. And now Chelsea is doing great things in this character, holding this title. It looks like they're kind of setting up for a little Tegan Nox and Natalya alliance. Both of those women I'm really high on right now. And if they came together to form a team, and maybe with Triple H guidance, without the impediment of Vince McMahon, maybe he could make something of these things, and I will give these belts one final chance to pull themselves out of the shitter. So maybe one way to do that is to unveil new tag team titles for the men and the women. You get the women's tag champs and the men's tag champs in the ring at the same time, and you give them their new belts. Now, that would be weird if the red and blue straps went to the men, but then the women didn't have red and blue straps, right? Because aren't the women supposed to float as well? You know, they've kind of been primarily Raw tag team titles. I haven't seen Chelsea and Piper on SmackDown, I don't think. Have they been on the show? So maybe the women's tags are just going to be exclusive to Raw. I don't know. But it feels like maybe that could be what they're doing. So what I'm hoping this means is that it's one of the two. It's either them just deciding which set they want to go with, or it's for the men and the women. I do not want to see two sets of men's tag team titles. And I admit I might be in the minority, because I saw a lot of people on social media wanting the opposite. I just don't. Nobody shuts the fuck up about having how many titles are in AEW. Do we really want that in WWE? Do we really need all of these tag team championships? What has been good about having two sets of men's tag team titles? They're more meaningful in my mind, in my opinion, if there's one set that floats between the two brands, unless they need them to be separated because they're really starting to set back up the Raw versus SmackDown stuff. But when WrestleMania is around the corner, how much of a brand split is there really going to be anyway? You know, it just doesn't seem like there's any time for Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce to create this war and separate these brands and all of this stuff, because the talent moves around so much. There should be no motivation for them to fight for their brand, because they know they could be on the other brand any day. It doesn't make any sense. So I don't want there to be two sets of tag team titles. I just don't, especially when you still have one show only being 2 hours long and the other one being 3. They're already uneven as it is. And the tag team title should be a floating title. That way, you know, it is a way to get talent from the other brand on the other show, and try at least to keep the draft as legitimate as possible. So I vote for one set of tag team titles. I'm hoping, if neither one of these tag team titles are for the women, so let's rule out that one too. Let's say one of these sets is not for the women, and they are legitimately testing which belt design they want to go with. I don't know if I like the idea of a red and blue strap. I don't. It depends on how they look. I like the idea of just black, if they were just like Seth's belt, but tag team titles, or bring back the 80s design, man. What's wrong with that? Take that design. I don't know why they're so allergic to classic or nostalgia, but just take that old 80s design, the belts that the Demolition and the Hearts and the Bulldogs wore, that belt, and just spice it up for modern times, and give it some Raw and SmackDown shit or red and blue shit or whatever you got to do to it. Just take that. I think fans would appreciate that. Get that turd off of Gunther's shoulder and give him that beauty that's hanging on my wall back there. Give him the classic one, man. What the hell? So that's just a 46-year-old talking. I know WWE's never going to do that, but I like the news about new tag team titles. I've been wondering what has been taking WWE so long getting that done. Who else is in the news? Oh, Lacey Evans. Lacey Evans is in the news. She was speaking to Mandy and Tino on, get this, the Power Alphas pod. They named their pod that. Wow. Okay. So she's kind of was running her mouth a little bit about her WWE departure and how apparently she almost got in a few fights backstage, and maybe she clashed with some of the women there. It was a rambling, just soup of weirdness. And I just wrote down one paragraph to show what I'm talking about here. And so she's asked about her WWE departure by Tino or Mandy or whatever. And then she goes on to say, and I quote, "Not that I give a shit to begin with, how I lasted 7 years in WWE, the same mouth as the same one backstage. I can't tell you how many damn fights I almost got into. I verbally told them every time, I'll work at McDonald's before I'll ever sit back and have anybody talk to me the way you talk to me because you feel I owe you something. The only thing I owe is working my ass off to have a good match. Back here, there is no damn way I'm going to let anybody talk to me just because you've walked roads that I haven't walked. It's been a few times. Luckily, the powers that be like me enough each year. I just got a little more. This is where she starts to ramble. WWE has been great to me. They've been awesome. I invested every bit of my money. I haven't taken out loans. I have investment properties, real estate. I have a full business paid for. I'm in a good place because I was smart. That addiction doesn't stop. Every day, just like the power alphas that are on this podcast. Excuse me. Okay. Just like the power alphas that are on this podcast, every day we wake up, if it's not if, it's when, and when we have to be ready to fight that head on, whatever it may be. What a word salad. A lot of people don't have that mindset. You can tell an alpha. I think people who use the word alpha are just ridiculous. You can tell an alpha from where they end up. I'm not an alpha and I'm doing great. It's not always the ones holding the title above their heads. Sometimes it's the ones that never go to touch that shit because we are alphas. I'm not standing outside of doors anymore waiting on answers that whoever the powers that be can't even look at me in the eye and tell me. I don't have time for that. I'll be damned if I'm going to live like that and have people talk to me a certain way because they feel that I don't owe anybody a damn thing because I work my ass off every day. None of that made any sense. Sounds like she just probably clashed with a few personalities backstage, and now that she's gone from WWE, she's like, I'll never let anybody talk to me like that. Well, you kind of did because you stayed with them until, they released you parted ways. So you were fine with everything provided you were employed there. But hey, I get it. I've had a few jobs I've been bitter about when I've left. I'm like, yeah, fuck that guy, man, or whatever. That's all just typical stuff. And I have no doubt that, in a women's locker room and, some of the jealousy and cattiness that can take place there. We've seen this with the men and the women and wrestlers in general. There's always going to be issues. And, and if you're one of these, strong Southern women that just runs your mouth all the time, probably people aren't going to like that. You're not going to like them. They're not going to like you. You're going to clash. And Lacey Evans is a tough woman. This is somebody that served in the military. So if I'm Dakota Kai, I'm certainly not going to be stepping to her and get my fucking lights punched out. So, Lacey, I guess Lacey's an alpha. But just when I read it, I just read it in that like Southern Lacey Evans voice, and I was laughing my ass off. So nothing that she even said there made any sense, and it wasn't even newsworthy because even though she said, yeah, I almost got in some fights in the locker room, like who doesn't, even the most respected people have got, people that they don't care for or like or anything. So I just found it comical more than anything else. It wasn't newsworthy. It's just when I watched, it wasn't even a transcripts. Like I wrote down I took the transcript and wrote it down, but I listened and watched her say all of this. And I'm like, I don't understand what she's saying. I don't understand. I'm happy for her though, because when she left, she did open up that business, and I forgot the details on it now, but it was kind of like a coffee shop or cafe, I believe in South Carolina, that was going to really offer things to veterans and really try to help and benefit them and give them a place to come, that type of thing. So her intentions are all good there, in terms of what she's doing in her life and all of that. But it's these alpha, I love Jesus people that are just a little bit too much for Greg. But best of luck to Lacey. At least she was smart with her WWE money, invested it all, started a business. Anybody that doesn't have to rely on wrestling to make a living, I'm always going to have a little bit of respect for, because that's what I would do. I would make sure my bases are covered in case I break my leg or get hurt or something happens, which could be a million different things that render my, wrestling career, with no money or not enough money, or I have to retire early, or I'm just not making what I thought or what I was before. You got to have a backup plan. And she did. Good for her. Best of luck to Lacey Evans, even though she makes me laugh. Let's talk about Dynamite. What a Dynamite. Holy shit. We had all this stuff going on Dynamite. It was one of the most, when I was making my notes for the show on Thursday, after watching Wednesday's show, I'm like, sometimes Dynamites and 2-hour shows like SmackDown or Dynamite feels like they can go by in an instant, where only like 4 or 5 things happen. And then there's some of those 2-hour shows where like a million fucking things happen, and this was one of them. So we will talk about that in a minute. Once I say hello to Will Chisholm. Thank you so much for the $5. I just love the fact that that it feels like Vince got played. It feels like they doing Vince how he did his own dad. It is a good feeling, kind of knowing that too. Maybe it's kind of sick of us, Will, to think that, but I do just really kind of giggle at the prospect of, Vince just kind of being so old and so all over the place. He's got so many problems, so many investigations, so many scandals, and all of the really, really savvy people around him, kind of, help, orchestrate, him getting out of there. And I think Nick Khan, I remember when it was announced that Nick Khan was being brought into the company, I looked at him as a poison. I'm like, this guy's going to kill this company. Nick Khan, came in and did his job. He came in and got that company sold. They moved on from Vince. They have a firm, hold now in creative with Triple H and Nick Khan holding the business end of things. The only thing they really have to worry about now is keeping stockholders happy, because as we've seen, that TV deal was not what they expected. Sure, it was an increase, but the increase wasn't as high. That affected the stock price. I think part of the reason why we haven't seen or heard of WWE's new TV deal for Raw and NXT yet is because that price is not where they want it to be. If there's a deal in place and it's going to be significantly less than what was expected, when you announce that deal, the stock's going to drop. And let's say Vince McMahon decides to sell all his stock at the same time, flooding the market with shares, dropping the price even more. So maybe there's a reason why we haven't heard about that deal. How come we haven't heard about the TV deal yet? Probably because the deal sucks. And WWE doesn't want that to get out publicly yet and drive that price down even more, especially if the deal is for a significant amount less. Now, what was this? What was the last one? The last one was a 40% increase, which they were considering a disappointment. Blows my mind how, getting $10 billion can be considered a disappointment, but I guess that it is. So Raw and NXT shopping for the best possible suitors feels like these two could be separated on different brands of WWE's trying to maximize the money they're getting for these properties. We could see Raw, SmackDown, and NXT all in 3 different places, and that's not good for the fans either. So we will see. But Vince McMahon, at least not being a part of creative, it just gives me a breath of fresh air, because now, when Triple H or when WWE does something stupid, we know who to blame. You can't blame Vince McMahon anymore for all your fucking problems. You're going to see, fans are going to learn that Triple H has his share of issues too, and he's not perfect by any means. But I still think Triple H is a much better option than Vince McMahon. And honestly, if I was handing out Booker of the Year, it would go to Triple H, not to Tony Khan. So Triple H is not perfect. He is not God. There are plenty of things that I think he could do better at and shit like that. But again, when you look at our options, him or Vince, I'll take Triple H in a heartbeat. But yeah, I'm with you, Will, on that. Let's talk about AEW Dynamite this week. Like I said, crazy show, a lot going on. We'll try to get through a lot of it as quickly as possible here. So we had a really, really great opener. Jay White defeating Penta for the meeting for the first time. That was a really, really great match. And Jay White was centered around a lot of the Bullet Club Gold and MJF stuff. Now, what I liked about the story they told on Dynamite is that everybody is gunning for MJF. He's got Jay White coming up at Full Gear, and next week he's got a big match for the Dynamite Diamond Ring against Juice Robinson, who won the Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal on Wednesday. So Juice last eliminated Max Caster. Jay White was on commentary for this. He still has Max's belt. Max attacks him. They're fighting on the stage, and Max retrieves his belt before Bullet Club interferes and helps Jay retrieve the belt. Meanwhile, Juice Robinson eliminates Max Caster to win the Battle Royal. He used his own cubic zirconia ring to blast Max in the face and eliminate him. And now it's going to be MJF and Juice next week for the Dynamite Diamond Ring. Now, MJF how many times has he successfully retained this thing? 4? 3? 4? So if he beats Juice, that will be 5. Isn't this ring like 5 years old now or whatever it's been? How old is this damn thing? So I think that making the Dynamite Diamond Ring just MJF's thing would be great. Have him never lose it. Or if he does finally lose it, maybe somebody other than Juice. Now, Juice has been great. I've been loving Juice. He's been super entertaining. He's really made me take notice. I did not care much for him prior to him coming in AEW. Watched him in New Japan, watched him in NXT. Just didn't do a whole lot for me. But what he's been doing lately has been hilarious, and I've been loving it. Despite the whole quarters thing, that we saw last Tuesday, which if you notice, they made no mention of or anything like that. So I don't think Juice really went off script or anything there. I think AEW realized, bad timing on that one. Let's just forget we ever said it. WWE's done the same shit a million times. Don't pretend they haven't. So he now is going to be facing MJF next week. Even though they're not mentioning the quarters thing, I think delivering that line on TV, how is this guy going to go in there now and beat MJF? You know, if there's ever a time when MJF should lose the Diamond Ring, probably when he's a babyface is the best time to do that. But considering everything that's been going on with Juice and MJF has got the match with Jay White coming up, he does not need to be taking a pin at all to a guy like Juice Robinson. This is your world champion who's the center of your show right now. Don't beat him. So I think he's going to wind up winning that Diamond Ring or retaining the Diamond Ring next week. But everybody's gunning for him now. And with Adam Cole now being on the shelf, legitimately, turns out, unfortunately, his injury was not a work. I was thinking maybe his injury, because his injury was definitely legit. You could see where he injured himself when he jumped off that ramp. But I was thinking and hoping that maybe the surgery part was a work. So sounds like it's not. He's had the surgery. They did a whole bunch of tapings at Roddy's house, which we'll talk about in a minute, to give him some TV time while he's obviously recovering from that surgery. But now that he's going to be gone, they kind of had to put this really, really fun storyline between MJF and Adam Cole on hold, probably for a while, because it sounds like it's going to be well into 2024. We're probably looking at summertime or post-WrestleMania time, I would think, for Adam Cole to come back. MJF's contract might be up by that point. So that's all got to be on hold. What do you do in the interim? You just make everybody and their mother gun for MJF. And as we saw on Dynamite, we had Kenny Omega bring up the world title in his interview backstage. Wardlow beat the piss out of Ryan Nemeth, excuse me, not Dolph, but the other one, in one power bomb and has MJF written on his wristband. Samoa Joe had a vignette saying that he's coming after MJF. He's got Juice Robinson next week. He's got Jay White at the pay-per-view. That's a lot of people gunning for you, and he's got no backup. He's got no friends because he was such a dickbag to everybody. The only friend he had got injured, and now he's got nobody. And he's got people coming from every direction. And as we would see, later in the show, there would be another one of those segments at Roddy's house that are starting to get some criticism now. This was funny at first, but maybe now fans aren't liking it so much, not thinking they're funny, thinking they're cringy. When a bunch of grown men are sitting around making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, I personally think that's phenomenal. I don't know what everybody's bitching about. I like that. Peanut butter and jelly for everybody. PB&J, around the way. It's fine with me. So we're back at Roddy's house with Cole, Adam Cole, and the Kingdom. And Roddy's like, back when you started in Ring of Honor, you used to make bomb-ass PB&Js. And they're like, yeah, you used to. So then you go to the music, and he's spreading the peanut butter, and they're watching him, and it's just very sensual and everything. And I guess he presents the sandwich to Roddy, and Roddy freaks out because Cole forgot to cut the crust off. And so Cole's like, fuck, I got too much. I have not talked to Max in like weeks because of this, and I just don't have time for this. I'm out of here. So he just finally gets fed up and leaves. And Roddy, after Adam Cole leaves, he's screaming, Adam, Adam. And he looks at the Kingdom and he goes, man, I might just have to be nice to that prick. Might be the only way to get my best friend back. So with MJF now facing all of these different challengers from every different direction, and he has no backup in Adam Cole, maybe Roderick and the Kingdom come to his rescue or help him in some numbers game to help him either beat Juice or Jay White would be most likely, maybe at the pay-per-view, if he's just completely overcome by Bullet Club Gold, and maybe we can get Roddy or Taven or Bennett out there or whatever helping him out, to where he still hates him, but he's got to say, well, I wouldn't have my Triple B if it weren't for you guys, so I guess we'll coexist for the good of Adam. Out of respect for our friend who's convalescing at home with his injury, we're going to have your back out of respect for him. And then MJF can be like, okay, I will accept your help out of respect for him. And maybe some of that Cole and MJF bromance that started out not so much and then kind of blossomed into that. Maybe they can do the same thing here with the Kingdom. And maybe, it's a big if and a big maybe, but maybe create some of that similar magic that MJF and Cole were creating. And if they could, then that right there could be your placeholder, as long as you can keep running with it long enough and stretch some of these matches with Kenny Omega, with Wardlow, with Samoa Joe. It feels like they've set up MJF's next few opponents that could conceivably stretch him well into 2024, maybe around the same time that Adam Cole comes back. We don't know. But a lot of those matches are intriguing, especially that Wardlow one, because I always felt like they should revisit Wardlow and MJF. And speaking of Wardlow, he annihilated Ryan Nemeth, one power bomb, and the referee called for the bell. And then Tony Schiavone came in the ring to interview Wardlow and said, what's on your mind, or what are you doing this for? And he just held up the armband that had MJF written on it, and he stormed out of the ring and shoulder checked Schiavone, and Schiavone falls to the mat. So Wardlow, I'm guessing he's a heel now. He's just coming out annihilating people. And I talked about Wardlow months ago. I said, if I'm Tony Khan, they've completely squandered Wardlow. Like, they've made massive mistakes with him to the point where I don't think he can be resurrected. And with kind of his contract status being unknown, if you're in Wardlow's shoes and your contract is coming up, what's your motivation to re-sign based on how you've been treated the last couple of years? You were so hot a couple years ago, and then everything just, went to shit because you were put on the back burner. You were cooled off, much to the bewilderment of all of us. So now I like how he's coming out here and just murdering people. That's great. But how long could that really last? If I'm in Tony Khan's shoes and I know, I'm just hypotheticaling this, okay? Those words right above my head, juicy speculation, that's all this is. So hypothetically, if Wardlow's contract is up in 7 months and Tony Khan knows I'm probably not going to be able to keep him, WWE will bring him in. They would be happy to bring him in. He's probably going to get an offer from them, and it might be an offer too attractive to pass up. Even if I can give him money, I might not be able to give him the exposure and the stardom that he could possibly get there because of the booking issues we've had with him already. Unless Tony Khan sat down with him and said, look, I'm going to push you. I'm going to do it right this time. I apologize for what happened. Let's get you on a roll. I want to get you re-signed in 7 months. So let's strap a rocket to you. That conversation might have happened. But if it didn't, and Tony Khan can see the writing on the wall and says, I think Wardlow is going to go the route of Jade and Cody and leave, I need to get that MJF match fixed because Wardlow destroyed his world champion a couple of years ago at Double or Nothing in a match I was in the building to see live. So if I'm Tony Khan, before Wardlow leaves, I want to get MJF that match so MJF can beat him before he goes. So that's what I would do. So then you got to bring Wardlow back to TV. You got to give him a reason to face MJF. He can't just show back up and be like, I want a title shot. No, you put him in the ring, have him squash some motherfuckers, call out MJF enough times to where MJF responds, and then finally you get the match. This time it's a little bit more competitive, and Max beats him. And then Tony Khan can feel comfortable letting Wardlow go to WWE. What do you think the option is there? With Wardlow calling out MJF, do you think there's a real chance that he's going to beat MJF for the title? Or is this a way for MJF just to get that win back from him? That's what I think it is. So we got Wardlow as one of MJF's future upcoming opponents, most likely. We also got the Rated R rebuttal. This wasn't okay. This Edge and Christian story in AEW is just not hitting yet. It's just not. I'm just have to be honest. It's a shame, too, because Christian has been doing phenomenal work. I hate that. It blows my mind that Adam Copeland's presence in AEW has actually hurt Christian a little bit. It's crazy to say that. And I still think there's plenty of time to turn things around here. But I think something might be missing from it. It's just hard to tell. Like Adam Copeland and Christian are pros. They can make magic together. Christian is having the best run, character work of his entire career, doing everything possible to be the most, heinous heel possible. But Adam Copeland is just trying to find his footing. He's only been there a couple of weeks. He's in a completely different environment. It's been a long time since Adam Copeland wrestled in an environment that wasn't WWE. So, just getting your footing there and all of that, I can understand it does take time. But in terms of this story, it's a little bit hard to get super invested in it. I like it. Anytime Christian's on TV, I'm going to watch and smile. But I don't know how long they're going to stretch out an Adam Copeland and Christian match. So Adam was doing a sit-down interview with Renee on Dynamite. So it was kind of like a pre-taped, dimly lit kind of studio setting and it was called the Rated R Rebuttal. And this is where Adam Copeland retold the story that we've heard many times before about how the two of them got into the business, how they were both going to write an essay. Edge wrote his, Christian didn't write his. Edge won, got free wrestling training, got his foot in the door, got into WWE, and was able to get Christian in there once he convinced Christian to start training, get into business as well. So he retold that story, which we have heard, and basically kind of goes the route of Undertaker and Kane, Brett and Owen, Rey Mysterio and Dominic, and who else? What other feuds of like family members have we seen where the one brother is reluctant to fight his other brother? And Edge says that he came to AEW to finish his career with Christian, but now that he gets here, Christian wants to fight him, but he doesn't want to fight his brother. He doesn't want to do that, even though these guys have had brutal matches against each other back in the day. We've seen them wrestle before. It's not like it's the first time ever. But now he just doesn't really want to fight him, and he's convinced, which is weird, he's convinced that Luchasaurus and Nick Wayne, two people who he doesn't know at all. One of them's an 11-year-old kid, and the other one's a goddamn dinosaur. Edge doesn't know these guys, but yet he seems to be convinced that Luchasaurus and Nick Wayne will dump Christian. And when that happens, he'll be there to pick Christian back up. Well, who says they're going to dump him? Why are they going to dump him? Why would they dump him? Christian should be dumping them. Both of those stars, maybe not Luchasaurus, because Christian, what he did with the TNT title, I can see Luchasaurus turning on him for that. I could even see Nick Wayne turning on Christian for manipulating him and his family and his mom and taking advantage of his age and, the impressionable nature that kids have when you're 19. It's very easy to be convinced of stuff at that age. So there's reasons why they would turn on Christian, but it's not like they're going to be turning on him to do him wrong. He's the one doing the manipulating, not the other way around. So Edge is making it sound like Nick Wayne and Lucha are using him. No, he's using them. If anybody's going to be dumping anybody, it's going to be him dumping them. And if the two of them were to turn on Christian, it would probably be the two of them turning babyface and attacking Christian for all of the disgusting shit that he said and done. And then Adam, maybe that's what this swerve, maybe that's what this is about. Maybe the whole swerve here is that Adam is going heel. Maybe the whole swerve is he's going to join up with Christian and he is determined to end his career in AEW. And since Christian doesn't want to do that as a babyface and join him, maybe he's got to join Christian and just be a dastardly heel like him. Think of the two of them. Edge tried for an hour and a half to be a heel in the Judgment Day. He came out, called us all, what did he call us? Inbred? We're all inbred, according to Edge. And insulted the sports teams and all that shit, which was weird for a supernatural type of gimmick. But that's what he was doing. He tried to be a heel. Maybe this is a way for him to make good on that. Come into the company at first, soak up those initial babyface reactions, and just let the fans experience Adam Copeland in the AEW environment, get that all done, and then move into heel. And maybe try to right the wrongs that was done to you in Judgment Day. And maybe you and Christian become the biggest heel duo this business, or AEW at least, has ever seen, where they are just terrorizing the company and the baby faces and all of that. I think that would be great. I would love it if that's where this is headed. But I don't know if the story here is going to be Adam Copeland really hesitating to face Christian. He's probably signed a 3-year deal, so you got all the time in the world to stretch this out, but don't stretch it out if it's not interesting. So that's why I think Edge going heel would be way better, if he was the one to wind up joining Christian. Because when Edge says, when Nick Wayne and Lucha dump you, I'm going to be there to pick you up, Christian's not going to be done wrong in that scenario, It's not like he's going to be anything bad would happen to him because he was the one being a jerk to Luchasaurus and holding his championship and manipulating Nick Wayne and all of the other horrible things he's done and said to Jungle Boy and other various opponents lately. If Christian is turned on, it's likely going to be, the two people just fed up with his manipulation and attack him to the cheers of the audience. He doesn't need rescuing or picking back up unless the person coming out there to rescue him or pick him back up is a heel too. So I kind of hope that's where it goes. I think at this point, nothing's dead in the water yet. It's too soon. So I'm not ready to brand Adam Copeland's AEW debut as a failure or anything like that yet. There's plenty of time to turn things around. We've seen that countless times with countless wrestlers and factions and storylines in every promotion across every year, every decade, ever. So plenty of time to still figure this out if they want to go in that direction. But I just think it would be way more fun to have Edge and Christian as a heel duo together. That would be great. And then you can still do the match down the line. One of them turns on the other or whatever, and Edge goes back to a face or who knows. You can still do that. But maybe Edge and Christian aligning first before you get to that final match and then Edge having his final match with Christian. Maybe you save this match for way in the future. You tease it here. Edge winds up turning heel, aligning with Christian. The two of them just terrorize the company for the next 2 years. You finally do a breakup. Adam Copeland, Christian, loser retires. Christian beats him. Something like that. We'll see. Time will tell. That reminds me, there was a promo last week on Collision, Edge and Ricky Starks, which was getting a little bit of criticism online. And when you watched it, it was a bit cringy. It started out great. Edge said something about Ricky Starks' silky white pants or whatever, and that was a great line. But it kind of devolved into some other stuff. I think Ricky said something like, "Ooh, you're edgy." And then Edge kind of was like, he just kind of flubbed up his lines a little bit. He basically called Ricky Starks a vanilla midget version of The Rock. And then he started running out of breath at the end of the line. It just sounded bad and awkward. It was one of those things where you're trying to talk too much smack and it just doesn't work out. It was like that. And a lot of fans thought it was like some major botch or anything. I really didn't. Fightful Select had this to say about it yesterday. Last week's AEW Collision promo turned some heads, but didn't cause any heat that we've heard of. Adam Copeland and Ricky Starks cut a promo in which both men took shots at each other. This led to many speculating they were heated as a result of the promo. Those that we've spoken to said there didn't appear to be any heat backstage, and that generally speaking, Adam does not get rattled by promos like that, but writes down his own material and has since his WWE days. In the moment, it was said he was just trying to give back what was given to him. Ricky Starks also wasn't upset about the promo, and we're told that the content in which Copeland said wasn't anything he hasn't heard before. Sources familiar with the situation said that if they end up having another in-ring promo, it'll be similar back and forth, and there aren't any concerns of anything escalating to an unprofessional level or anything like that. Thus far, Adam Copeland has received great reviews from talent and staff in AEW. One said that they probably wouldn't have used the vanilla midget line, but outside from that, it was two guys trying to be off the cuff. So I get that. That's just kind of what happens sometimes. You know, some guys are really good at just coming up with shit on a whim or on the fly or being able to react to what the other person is saying. And then sometimes it just, even the best in the business fuck shit up. Rock has screwed up a couple of lines in the past as well. So this is not uncommon, but it was an awkward, little bit of a clunky promo that wasn't very good, you know, for one of Edge's first in the company. But apparently that was, you know, pretty much a non-issue backstage. So then after that on Dynamite, this was horrible. Oh my God, we had a sit-down interview with Nick Wayne and his mom. Does Nick Wayne's mom have a name? Do we know this woman's name? It's just Nick Wayne's mom on TV. And Nick is sitting there. He's just like that comatose teenager that you just wish you could euthanize. It's just staring dead into space. He's not like Hook. You know, Hook's cool. This kid's just a little prick face on him, a little dumb face. And he's just sitting there staring ahead, eyes half squinted, lazy prick. And he's not, you know, paying any attention to anything. And he completely disses his mom. And he says that Christian is a better father figure than his dad. And then Christian shows up, and that's when it gets good. And then Christian puts his hand on Nick's shoulder, and he goes, "Let's go, son." And he gets up to leave. And Nick's mom grabs him or something, and she slaps Nick Wayne, and then immediately kind of regrets it. And then he looks at his mom, and he goes, "You're dead to me." And his mom shows emotion. I liked it because of the absurdity of it. Christian saved it. Otherwise, this would have been the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. But I like when WWE does this too. There are certain types of segments that go beyond a line of being so bad that they turn good. And this is one of those times. There's been a lot of examples over the years of WWE doing something similar where they're trying to make it serious, but it's so laughably bad that you wind up being entertained by it. And this was one of those times. I loved every bit of this, even though it was the most horrible thing I've ever seen. I like those segments. I like when they happen sometimes. I just think Nick Wayne is way too young to really, you know, he's a great wrestler. He's, you know, kind of like a prodigy and all that's great. But sticking him in an interview like this on wrestling, trying to tell a story, I just think, you know, he's too young. He's 11, for fuck's sake. So, and of course, his mom, clearly no actress. So I don't know, but sometimes that's what makes wrestling fun. So no issue with that storyline or that segment. The absurdity of it was part of the fun. Kenny Omega also defeated Kyle Fletcher on the show. Good one-on-one match here. Pretty good match, actually. It was set up in a segment earlier on with the Callis family and Powerhouse Hobbs when Kyle Fletcher came out because his tag team partner is injured, going to be out for some time, so they got to find things for him to do. So he kind of approached the Callis family looking for a spot. I think Don was like, "I have a good showing against Kenny, and we'll talk about it." Don did commentary for the match, and Kenny won with the one-winged angel. Lance Archer, out of nowhere, the Murder Hawk Monster is back. Excuse me. I'm not sick anymore. I'm just coughing today. So Lance Archer, out of nowhere, is back. I do think he announced it on social media prior to the show that he was going to be back. I don't even know what the status of him has been over the past year or so, or what his contract status is, but he's back, won in a squash match in several seconds there. So him and Wardlow both looked real good on Dynamite. Hikaru Shida took on Emi Sakura. This was an eliminator match. So if Emi won, she would get a title shot, but Emi didn't win. Hikaru Shida beat her. So that was funny. And the final thing I want to talk about on Dynamite is, of course, the retirement announcement of Sting. So Sting came to the ring. By the way, it was announced earlier on in the week that Sting was going to be addressing his fans on Dynamite. And the announcement had a different vibe to it than some of the other Sting announcements or promos. You almost had a feeling, or you almost just knew automatically that this was going to be about his retirement. And I had put up a tweet before he even made this announcement. I was really close to predicting this right. I had the right idea. I tweeted, I think on Wednesday before Dynamite, I said, if Sting is going to, in fact, announce his retirement tonight, I think it would be awesome if he retired at Winter is Coming, which I'm assuming they're still doing. Maybe they're not. But if he retired at Winter is Coming, that would be 3 years after he debuted at the same show. I thought that would be a perfect way, just a nice 3-year run, December 21 to December 23, and or December 2020. That's when he came in. Is 2020 to 2023, and just bookend it there. But instead, it's going to be Revolution because that's where Sting's first AEW match took place. Was a couple of months later. So he came to the ring and he talked about his career. He showed respect to a lot of the people that he worked with and learned from and traveled up and down the road with. He name dropped Hogan to a lot of boos, mentioned Ric Flair, mentioned Lex Luger, the Steiner brothers, Buff Bagwell, Dusty Rhodes, had a lot of great things to say. And he announced that it's time for him to retire. And he knows when that match will be. It will be at Revolution in 2024 because Revolution 2021 was when he had his first AEW match. So he wants that to be the same show that he retires on. So I was close. I thought it would be Winter is Coming because that's when he debuted, but 3 years after he had his first match. And I don't think we have a date on this. So we're like 4 or 5 months away. So this is still a ways off Sting's retirement. So there's still lots of time here. I'm all for Sting retiring whenever he wants. Revolution is fine with me. I almost wish it was a little sooner, to be honest, but I understand why he would want it to be that date. So we're looking at a pretty good amount of time here before he retires. So we have now a few months to really appreciate Sting whenever he's going to be on TV. My big concern for Sting is just to be careful. He is 64 years old. He will just be about to turn 65 when this match happens. And I don't want him to risk injury. I would hate for him to blow a knee out or tear an Achilles or do something that could put this match in jeopardy. So if he is going to do some wrestling, be careful. But this is Sting we're talking about. And if I say be careful, all he's going to do is jump off a balcony. So all we can do is hope for the best when it comes to Sting and see what they're going to do in terms of how they're going to set up his retirement. Is this going to be an angle? Are they going to put this in motion like on TV next week and start laying the groundwork for this? Or is Sting just going to be on TV and then they're going to revisit it next year as you get closer to the date and then start talking about who he's going to face? I don't really know. And who and how is he going to go out? It's going to be Revolution, singles match or tag match. Let's rule out tag match. Let's go singles. Because Sting's jumping off of balconies. He can do a singles match. He's not Ric Flair. He's more capable than Flair. So I think a singles match can happen. And I think the obvious opponent is Darby Allin. And if you put him in the ring with Darby Allin, that is a guaranteed great match. Guaranteed. Because Darby will carry it. Darby will do crazy shit. Darby will try to kill himself before he kills himself on Mount Everest, like a month or two later. I believe Darby is in training for that right now. So that means he's going to have to like end his training or come back to TV maybe in the beginning of the year, do this shit with Sting, and then go back to China or wherever the hell he has to go to continue his training before he climbs that mountain, which I think is in April or May of next year. So Darby's the obvious choice. Darby, I believe, is the one who can give him the best match. Darby is the one who I believe will really, really give the performance of a lifetime to ensure that Sting goes out in the best way possible. So Darby's my pick. I'm just not dead set on Darby to where it has to be him and has to be him only. They can do other things. I mentioned Nick Wayne earlier on. Nick Wayne is just a child. He's like in 7th grade. And Sting working with Nick Wayne, just fucking him up, slapping his stupid little face around and pinning his prick little ass to the mat in just a few minutes. Stinger splash, scorpion, deathlock, the whole 9. Just wipes the mat with the little prick and celebrates to a victory, goes out on top. And now Nick Wayne has got a career building moment. You know, maybe it's not a complete smear squash. You know, maybe Nick Wayne has a good showing, ultimately, you know, succumbs to the legend. It would not be any less believable than Hogan beating Shawn or anything like that. So Sting just beating him, and now Nick Wayne has that as his foundation for his whole career. You know, Sting, you know, Darby or Nick Wayne will still be an active wrestler. I hate to say this, but Nick Wayne will probably still be an active wrestler when Sting passes away. So, think about that. In 20 years, Nick Wayne's only going to be 38 years old. Sting will be 85. So that could be a good thing for him. What about Edge? Adam Copeland, maybe not his last match, but I would like to see maybe those two get in the ring prior to then. Maybe not one-on-one, but in a tag scenario, maybe Edge or Adam Cole. It's still hard to not call him Edge. Edge and Sting against, a couple of heels on Dynamite. Could be fun, especially if Darby Allin isn't going to be around because he's training. Edge could step in to kind of be an ally to Sting to go up against Christian and Nick Wayne and Lucha and all that. So that could be something good for Edge to do, is kind of hitch himself a little bit to Sting, give them some screen time together, because that's going to be a trip for Edge too. They've never really worked together. They've never crossed paths at all in WWE. They were there at different times, and they've never had a chance to share a ring, share a moment, a segment, an interview, a match, something like that, just once. So that would be great. So by the time we get to Revolution next year, Darby Allin, I think, is the likely choice. And I stand corrected. Back when Darby and Sting first got together, I wasn't critical of it. It's just at the time I thought the pairing was odd. I didn't realize at the time what a great pairing they really made. Because the only thing in my mind at the time that they had in common was the black and white face paint. The face paint wasn't even the same. They were two completely different concepts. They were just both black and white. So they had similar face paint. So I'm like, is that why we're putting them together? Because they have similar face paint? If Darby is going to hitch himself to a legend, Jeff Hardy is the legend he should be hitching himself to. Sting and Darby Allin wrestled completely different styles in completely different eras against completely different opponents in a completely different weight class. There's nothing about them alike at all, at least at the time in my mind. Just a little bit with that darker character. How cool would it be? Oh my God, I just thought of this. So Darby's got the bleach hair, right? What if, and I'm going to call this out early, save this date on this podcast in case this really happens. What if Darby in Sting's retirement match dresses like Surfer Sting? Hot pink tights, the hair, the face paint. How cool would that be? That would be great if that was the match. Maybe that tribute would be a little bit too much to do on full-on cosplay, but maybe some gear that might resemble that a little bit, perhaps in Sting's retirement match. That might be fun, right? That could work. So I always thought that Darby, his style and his recklessness was much more suited for a legend like Jeff Hardy, because of Jeff Hardy, all the crazy shit that he's done, than Sting. But I've never been happier to be wrong, because the two of them were such a great pairing. They were such a great alliance. Sting seems to genuinely like Darby Allin and really does see him as the future of wrestling. I would like to see Darby as the future of wrestling, but when he's taken top rope back bumps onto the side of steel steps and he's a $140, how long is his career going to last when he severs his spine in half in every single match? So I would like to think Darby is the future of wrestling, but I also think Darby's shelf life is going to be short. But then again, I thought the same thing about Jeff Hardy, and he's wrestling in AEW right now. So yeah, Darby's my pick, but if they wanted to do something, like I described earlier, then I'd be open to anything. And whatever, when it comes to somebody like Sting, who's been wrestling for 4 decades, I've got no business telling him how to retire. Neither do you guys, and neither does anybody else. Even if we don't totally agree with the way he's doing it, it's his choice. If you worked that long doing something, you'd want to go out on your terms too. And your terms are never going to please everybody. It's always going to stir up debate. It's always going to, be a cause for arguments or whatever. Oh, he should do it this way. No, he should do it that way. And then you get a bunch of know-it-alls yelling at each other. Really not about that. It's just about Sting, what he wants to do. I'm hoping that whatever he chooses is satisfying. And I have every reason to believe that it will be, because Sting has been one of Tony Khan's greatest successes. It really has. For all of Tony Khan's mistakes with his booking, one thing he's handled excellently has been the use of Sting. AEW handles legends better than WWE, because they didn't do with Sting what WWE did with Goldberg. They used him in a way where people benefited. Goldberg being brought into WWE benefited very few people. None, really. where Sting was a completely different story. The people he got to touch and work with and, share a ring with, all of that stuff is going to be a really nice way, I think, for Sting, in his 60s to have a run in AEW and close out his career there, now spanning all of these. He's had Hall of Fame runs now in nearly 4 companies. I don't know if you could constitute what he did in WWE as a Hall of Fame run, but definitely in the NWA and WCW and TNA and AEW, these have been very, very memorable. And that's crazy that Sting made this huge career for himself, and the place where he did the worst was WWE. That's mind-blowing. I wouldn't say he did the worst there. He went in the Hall of Fame. He had a match with Triple H at WrestleMania. But in terms of how fans remember his career, nobody really looks at his WWE run with a whole lot of fondness. So pretty awesome that he really made this career for himself 90% outside of the WWE umbrella. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's going to be sad to see him go, but I'm glad that we finally have a date. And hopefully when this date comes, it all provides us with the appropriate amount of closure and all of that. So we love you, Sting. Last night's Rampage, holy shit, they had Mystico defeating Rocky Romero, 2 out of 3 falls match. Good to see Mystico in AEW. Fans were really talking a lot about that all week long, excited for this match because of what a huge star, he is in Mexico. And, it's, what's that meme with Charlie from Always Sunny with the chalkboard and the equations and shit? That's what I think about whenever I try to whenever I try to organize the Mysticos, the Sin Caras, the Dragon Lees, the NWA historic middleweight and the CMLL middleweight and the welterweights and all of that, it's a mind fuck. But Mystico is the original Sin Cara in WWE, if memory serves. And then when he came in, he was replaced with Hunico. They had a feud. Then I think Hunico took over the Sin Cara name in WWE, and Mystico went back to Mexico. I don't recall the story there, so damn confusing. But it is great to see him in AEW. They had a hell of a match last night. Rocky Romero, I love him. He's just always involved with cool people in the business, it seems like. They had the CMLL referee in there, which was also awesome. And Mystico got the win. Match between a couple of champions last night on Rampage. Very cool that we can sometimes just randomly get thrown awesome matches by AEW, some of them with very, very little build, like the one we are going to see tonight between Bryan Danielson and Andrade El Idolo. They're billing this as a dream match. I'm not sure if I'd say it's a dream match. It's an awesome match, a match I'm happy to see, a match I think has happened in WWE before. If I saw a few fans getting uppity about that they called it a dream match, I'm like, who fucking cares? WWE calls John Cena the greatest of all time. What do you care? Who fucking cares what they call it? And call it the greatest potato fuck of all time. I don't care. Call it whatever you want. I'm interested in the fact that Danielson and Andrade are going to be in the ring together. I don't give a shit what they call it. So that's going to be a match we're going to see tonight on Collision that goes live in 1 hour. We're also going to see Miro taking on Action Andretti. Ricky Starks and Big Bill, your new AEW World Tag Team Champions, taking on Wheeler Yuta and Claudio. And we have Jeff Jarrett versus Eddie Kingston in a Memphis street fight. That match Jarrett did with Jeff Hardy was not good. I liked Jarrett when he came in, when he was signed. I'm like, oh, why'd they do that? And then when they brought him in, I'm like, oh, he's awesome. Now I'm starting to not like him again. And now it's Jarrett versus Kingston, Memphis street fight. Kingston should destroy him. Hopefully he will. And also FTR returns to the ring. So I thought FTR dropped the tag titles because Cash was hurt, but they're back in the ring now. So I'm really surprised after that long run, they dropped the belts the way they did. But Ricky and Bill are now your champions, and I guess they're running with them. Then later on tonight, I believe we have Battle of the Belts. It's going to be Chris Statlander defending her TBS title against Willow Nightingale, the Orange Cassidy defending his international against John Silver, and the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass putting their trios on the line against Garcia, Bernard, and Parker. So that should be fun. Also, there was a report today that Sami Callihan, recent free agent, is backstage at Collision tonight, and there's also been talks of him going to WWE. So we'll see where Sami Callihan lands. Just don't bring a baseball bat with you. Last night's SmackDown was pretty good. We're going to talk about this in 1 second. Let me answer this super chat from WWE fan. Thank you for that $2. No, I am not watching Bound for Glory tonight. I forgot to mention that. I mentioned that Ace Steel is getting a tryout at Bound for Glory weekend, and I forgot to mention that that is this weekend. So he is there now. I am not watching it tonight. I'll try to catch the results if I can, but as soon as this podcast is over, I got to head off to work. So I'm guessing that probably goes live like Collision in an hour. Do I have that right? Is that what's going on with Bound for Glory? It's hard for me to keep track of that. All right, let me see. That leaves us with SmackDown. We got to talk about SmackDown last night. This was a show of kind of segments and promos. We didn't have a whole lot of wrestling on this show, but the wrestling that we did get was quality wrestling. So we'll talk about all the talking stuff first. And we're going to start with LA Knight and Paul Heyman. Yeah, just want to make sure I got all those so I didn't forget anybody. So last night on SmackDown, the show opened up with Paul Heyman, and he was interrupted by LA Knight. And on social media earlier on in the day, they announced that LA Knight versus Roman Reigns at Crown Jewel is official. So we knew that was going to be the match. They announced it on social media. Again, I saw fans, why would they announce it here? We knew this was coming. It doesn't need to be a certain way. It doesn't matter where they announce it. We already know it's going to happen. So that match is all set. And Paul Heyman now has dark hair again. And I guess the story that they're trying to insinuate is that Paul Heyman is so stressed out when his tribal chief is not there that it gives him gray hair. And since we saw Roman come back last week, his hair changed back to its normal color. And so he's back with his dark hair again tonight. And LA Knight makes reference to a contract signing that apparently is going to happen next week on SmackDown between LA Knight and Roman Reigns. Contract signing for their match at Crown Jewel, and SmackDown next week will be on FS1, so it won't be on Fox. So nothing great here out of that promo. You know, LA Knight just talked his typical smack, vowed to beat Roman Reigns at Crown Jewel, but we all know that's not going to happen. And I think that I'm worried that many fans, when LA Knight does not win the title, are going to think that he's buried or they've ruined him or whatever. Look, stupids. If they weren't going to pull the trigger on Sami Zayn in Elimination Chamber, they weren't going to pull the trigger on Cody at WrestleMania, they weren't going to pull the trigger on Jey Uso at SummerSlam, they are not pulling the trigger on LA Knight in Saudi fucking Arabia. Just not happening. And I think WWE needs to really make sure, because otherwise these stupids, as I call them, are going to be right. They need to make sure that since we already know LA Knight's not going to be winning the title, you have plenty of time to come up with a finish that's not the same bullshit that we saw with Cody and Drew McIntyre and Jey Uso. Every fucking Roman defense is the same thing. It's the same story. He cannot win on his own, and it always takes a solo interference or something like that to get it done. And I think that's happened now one too many times. And Jay getting screwed at SummerSlam, the fans were like, okay, enough's enough of this shit. So I don't want to see that same finish. I think that would be lazy. And considering how much time and creative thought goes into this storyline with Roman and Heyman, Fightful had a whole write-up on this the other day, that they should be able to concoct something a little bit more creative than Solo comes in when the referee's not looking and hits a Samoan spike on LA Knight. And if LA Knight wants to be compared to a Stone Cold Steve Austin, then Roman Reigns needs to be his Bret Hart. Because when Austin was on the rise, he lost to Bret at Survivor Series. He lost to Bret at WrestleMania. He was losing to Bret, but when he was losing to Bret, he was gaining the respect of the audience and really starting to bubble up even more. It really raised his stock. Now, the business moves a bit faster than it does in 96 and 97. Pedal to the metal. It's pedal to the metal now. So I don't think that you can really wait another 2 years to belt up LA Knight if you choose to. But there are ways to make this match with Roman Reigns work, have him get screwed, or have some sort of because everybody gets screwed. Cody got screwed. They all get screwed, but screwed worse, you know? Like have the match won, psych out the fans, have a near fall or a false finish or something like that that really makes the fans for a split second think we have a new champion, and then screw him in some way. to where he leaves that match the way Austin left WrestleMania 13. Crown Jewel should be LA Knight's WrestleMania 13, where he's got Roman beat, but for whatever reason, he does not walk away with the belt. And what do you think the best option would be there when you're thinking about that type of scenario? Because WrestleMania 13, Austin lost. He passed out to the blood. So what do you think would be better for LA Knight? Would it be better for him to fight his balls off and fight till the bitter end to where he can't fight anymore, to where he loses, but he kind of gives you that Benoit Royal Rumble 03 performance against Angle, or gives you some sort of a performance where the fans applaud when he's leaving the ring? Austin, same thing after WrestleMania 13, kind of hobbled. The camera followed him all the way to the back. That was very profound. That was very powerful to me. The way he just hobbled away, just covered in his own blood, stunning referees. Anybody gets in his way, let me walk to the back on my own. And that just little moment right there made him. So would that be better for LA Knight to lose a hard fought battle to where you pass out to the pain or you pass out from the blood? They're probably not going to use blood, so you're going to have to find the equivalent of that to tell that story. Or would it be better for him just to get a disqualification or a count out victory over Roman Reigns, where he beats him and you can set up, a title shot for him down the road when everything else sorts itself out? Like between those two, fight your ass off, and lose in the middle, but gain even more respect from the audience, or beat Roman via DQ and all the fans can be pissed that you didn't get the belt, but you got your hand raised. What's better? I'm curious. I don't really know. I kind of think it might be fighting his ass off. I think he needs that because LA Knight has not gotten really great match star ratings or anything like that. Nobody's really looking at him as, a 5-star match worker, but neither was Austin. And quite frankly, neither was Rock. So there are ways to make that work. But I do think LA Knight, for the good of his character, and at least for the legitimacy for the fans, who, even though he's super popular and super over right now, they can turn on you in a second. So if he has a good match, and he can go out there and deliver a good match where the match itself is actually good and the story they tell is good, that's going to be a career-making moment for him. So I'm hoping, best case scenario, in a perfect world in my head, LA Knight does not win the championship, but he comes out of Crown Jewel a bigger star than he went in. That's hard to accomplish. That's really hard to accomplish. It took a double turn to get that done at WrestleMania 13. So that's really kind of hard to do when you're in there with somebody like Roman, especially with the way finishes can be booked. And a lot of fans can, be overcritical, about how they're set up and all of that, and maybe miss the big picture. It's tough to put that puzzle together. So I'm hoping that they do. And maybe a good consolation prize for LA Knight, you got to think about something for him to do until next year. And we get on the other side of WrestleMania 40. And hopefully by then Cody's our champion. And then you can start lining up the challengers. He's got to do something between now and then. As we're going to talk about later, Rey Mysterio and Logan Paul set up their big match at Crown Jewel as well. I think it's pretty likely that Logan Paul is going to win the United States title. So maybe LA Knight and Logan Paul can be your next match. If LA Knight is not going to win the Royal Rumble, or if they don't have plans for him to win the Royal Rumble, then I wouldn't put him in the Royal Rumble. I'd put him against Logan Paul for the U.S. title on the undercard. And then maybe they can both enter the Rumble later, but they get ousted early, or you just do something to get them out early and make them non-factors. But that could be a good spot. Maybe Survivor Series, Logan Paul versus LA Knight. But I think if Logan Paul is going to win the U.S. title, they might want him to hold it for a while. Only problem with that is they already have a part-time world champion on that show. So that means Logan Paul and Roman Reigns are going to hold 2 SmackDown belts hostage. I don't think that's a good idea either. So if Logan Paul is going to win the title, he needs to be on TV as much as possible until he drops the belt, which means his run could be short, super short, like Survivor Series short. But I think LA Knight will probably be in that War Games match. So if they don't do it at Survivor Series, maybe they can stretch it to Royal Rumble and you do a nice little Logan Paul, LA Knight program, promo battle throughout the holidays on SmackDown, shit like that. But I think maybe LA Knight winning the U.S. title from Logan Paul at a big pay-per-view Royal Rumble, or you could stretch it all the way to WrestleMania. If you want to do Logan and LA Knight, you could do that at WrestleMania. I've got this thing booked in a month for Survivor Series, but it could be way down the line at WrestleMania, or it could be at the Rumble. It could be anywhere. So that could be something for LA Knight to do after this match with Roman, since Roman then is probably going to go on to probably not defend the title for the rest of the year, unless they book him in a match at Survivor Series, unless he's in that War Games match, which I don't think he would be. He might be, but I don't think he would be. Maybe he is. Actually, he should be. He should be in there with Cody and LA Knight and stuff. That would be great. Little tease for the future. But we don't know. But if that's the case, if he's in the War Games match, that means he's not going to be defending the belt again, probably until the Royal Rumble. And then if he survives that, maybe he's got one more defense, but likely it's going to be WrestleMania, and that will be the end for him. So we will see LA Knight, Roman Reigns, Cody. It's going to be a fun few months. After Heyman and LA Knight's segment, we had John Cena cutting a promo. He comes out to the ring and mentions a very crazy stat. John Cena has not won a singles match in 2,002 days. It's been over 2,000 days since he won a one-on-one match. The last time he did win a one-on-one match, the wrestler he beat isn't even active anymore, Triple H, at the first ever Crown Jewel in 2018. I hadn't even met Elizabeth yet. Me and Elizabeth had not even met yet when John Cena won his last singles match. That's crazy. That is crazy to me. So he even goes on to say that he's been thinking about retirement, and he's kind of got a little bit of a somber voice there, and then he gets all fired up and turns into that riled up John Cena that we see. And he's like, I'm not going nowhere, and I'm going to also loyalty, respect, whatever he says. And he wants somebody to come out and fight, and he's approached by Solo. Solo comes out. They start brawling. Jimmy Uso then hits the ring, and Solo and Jimmy start beating down John Cena, and that's when Jey Uso comes through the crowd in a hoodie, pulls out Jimmy, starts beating him up, reveals the hoodie to reveal that it's Jey, to a massive pop. What do you guys have this guy right now? Number 3, babyface? I mean, shit. Jey Uso is massively over. I think it's like Cody, LA Knight, and Jey. Who am I missing? Rollins? I think Rollins is 4 or 5, to be honest. So, holy shit. So Sammy's up there too. But Jey Uso, that pop was amazing. So that actually causes an incident backstage where Nick Aldis is there with Adam Pearce. So they just made Nick Aldis the general manager of SmackDown. Adam Pearce is the general manager of Raw. Why the hell is Pearce even there? Why is he there? Jey Uso, we know why he's there, because he went to attack Jimmy Uso. So now he's backstage, and Nick Aldis fines Jey Uso $10,000. But I don't know how that works. Can the general manager of the Lakers fine a Chicago Bulls player? No. That makes no sense. So he's fining Jey Uso $10,000 or whatever. And then Adam Pearce is like, that's bullshit. Oh, and then he tells security to escort Jey Uso out of the building. And then Pearce is like, that's bullshit. And Nick goes, oh yeah? We'll have a security escort you too. And he just kicks them both out and has security escort Jey and Adam out of the building. And then Adam Pearce looks at Nick Aldis and goes, let the games begin. So that kind of insinuates or hints that maybe one of these War Games ideas could in fact be a Raw versus SmackDown match, which I do not want. There's much more fun to be had in having Judgment Day and Bloodline team up to take on 5 babyfaces. There's way more fun there. So I'm hoping that this Raw and SmackDown general manager screen time that's being shared here is a way to let the fans know that expect to see these guys in the same place, because they're going to be setting up the War Games match. Because if that match, Bloodline and Judgment Day versus babyfaces, happens, that's going to be a co-branded type of thing. So you're going to need some cooperation there with Aldis and Adam Pearce. Or they're setting up opposition right away, getting these guys to hate each other so they can do Raw versus SmackDown. But I'm not really interested in a War Games match for Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis's bragging rights. I don't give a fuck about that. I like Nick Aldis. I like Adam Pearce. I'd be fine if these two guys had a match. I wouldn't rule it out, actually. But having them trying to develop this rivalry between the two of them this quickly, enough to warrant a War Games match with a red-shirted team versus a blue-shirted team, makes me want to vomit the thought of that. So I'm really hoping that doesn't happen, and I'm hoping it's what we mentioned earlier, and some of this can be part of that. So we'll see what happens now on Monday on Raw. Is Nick Aldis going to show up at the show? Is that what they're going to do? Are they just going to rehash the same thing? Is a SmackDown star going to jump the railing? Is Jimmy Uso going to come in or Solo and attack Cody or whatever? And then backstage, Adam Pearce is going to fine that person $15,000, a bigger fine, and call the actual police to escort them from the building. And then you can let the one-upsmanship continue until maybe it builds to a War Games match. I just hope that it doesn't. We will see. Then we had the big segment between Logan Paul and Rey Mysterio. Logan Paul challenging him for the U.S. title, says he wants to win the title. He's got a little bit of a story there because Rey, he fought Rey in his first match, in the tag team match, and they won that match, right? Miz and Logan Paul beat Rey and Dom at WrestleMania. It was WrestleMania or SummerSlam where that match happened. So Logan's kind of calling out Rey. Rey comes out, lays the title down, accepts the challenge. We get a handshake, and the match is now set for Crown Jewel. You know who I feel bad for? Santos Escobar, because it feels like they were lining up for him to win this championship. I thought it was going to be Santos beating Rey for the title after, turning heel on him or whatever. But instead, he might be sticking around in the LWO a little bit longer now that Carlito's back, and maybe they're holding that off. But Rey and Logan Paul already beat Rey Mysterio in his first match. So you would think, it's time for the legend to beat Logan Paul here. But I think Logan Paul has lost all of his other matches in WWE, and he's performed at a really high level. I'm not against Logan Paul winning the U.S. title. I'm not, as crazy as that sounds. He's proven that he's made for this. I think he's way more made for wrestling than he is for boxing or anything else. And his match with Rey should be phenomenal. He's had a star-making performance already in Saudi Arabia against Roman Reigns, so we know he can do it. My only big issue is him being on TV if he is going to win a championship. If they're going to give him the title, he better be on SmackDown as much as humanly possible. Otherwise, you got Roman and Logan, two guys holding two-year belts hostage. And, the tag team championships are on Raw with Judgment Day, even though they can appear on SmackDown. It's, you got no belts over there. So I think, other than Io Skies. So I think that Logan winning the title could be fun. He'd take that belt around on tour with him and show it off and shit like that. You just got to be on TV. You got to be on SmackDown. If WWE, if you're going to give the kid a belt, then he needs to be on TV. That's all I'm saying. Loved Pretty Deadly's spa day being ruined by the Brawling Brutes. They attacked him in the spa and dunked their heads in the same water that they had their feet in and all that. That was fun stuff. Love that. Love Pretty Deadly. New SmackDown star Kevin Owens did a sit-down interview with Kathy Kelly where he talked about his disappointment leaving Sami Zayn. They never really got a chance to win back those tag team titles, and that bothers him. But, he's here. He's ready to accept his role as a SmackDown star, and there's a whole lot of new faces to punch. And then he asked Kathy, is there anybody you'd like me to punch for you? I'd be happy to do it. Kathy's a sweetheart. Everybody takes care of Kathy. And a couple days ago, in a digital exclusive backstage interview with Kathy Kelly, Kevin Owens mentioned his friend Adam, who had surgery today. And of course, Undisputed Era was very tight with Kathy Kelly as well. And I loved that. I loved that Owens referenced the surgery. Apparently there's somebody else named Adam that also got a surgery that people said maybe that's who Owens was referencing, but I'm pretty sure it was Adam Cole and the foot surgery that he was going through. And I thought to myself, I'm like, wow. As it turns out, the injury is obviously legit, and Cole had his surgery and he's going to be on the mend for a while. But I was holding out hope. I'm like, man, if it does turn out that his surgery was a work and he's the one under the devil mask or whatever, and Kevin Owens helped the work along on WWE, that would have been so amazingly special. But it was still special because he wished his friend good luck, and I liked that. Montez Ford, speaking of Santos Escobar earlier on, Montez Ford defeated Santos one-on-one. Santos just succumbed to the numbers game. That's all that was. There was an attack after the match, and Carlito came out to make the save. Still trying to get used to that Carlito music. It's going to be tough. I don't hate it. It's just his other one was better. Like when I still haven't heard a clean edit of it, but when I do listen to it, I'm like, I feel like there's a chance for it to grow on us, but I could be wrong. A lot of people are kind of shitting on the theme. We just got to hear it a few more times and maybe we'll get used to it. Grayson Waller and Austin Theory defeated Dragon Lee and Cameron Grimes in a tag team match. Theory pinned Grimes after his A-Town Down finisher thing. And Theory and Waller are developing into a pretty good team. They're on my radar for the next team to hold those tag team titles or a team to hold them in the near future. I could totally see WWE going in that direction, just naming them the Douchebag Express. That's all you need to do. And man, oh man, I cannot say enough good things about that main event. Io Sky defending her WWE Women's title against Charlotte. I was at work and I was terrified because I did not want to look at my phone and look at the app to see that Charlotte has won the championship. I really like Io Sky. I think she's a great champion. She's been doing great in her run. And this match might have been her best match to date as champion. So good. Favorite part was when she missed that moonsault. She missed the moonsault, and normally, like on a moonsault or a splash from the top, you get your knees up to block it. Charlotte got her feet up, like she straight up stretched her legs out, and Io Sky moonsaulted perfectly onto Charlotte's feet, and then just took a hell of a bump all the way on the other side of the ring. Charlotte immediately gets up, hits her with a huge spear, goes to pin her for the win, and Bayley grabs Io Sky's foot, puts it on the ropes at the last second. Such a good sequence there. Loved that. And in the end, what happened was with all of the Damage Control members out there, the belt finds its way into the ring. Io Sky picks it up and is holding it, and Charlotte comes in for a spear, but she basically spears the belt. She spears the belt. The belt gets, while the referee's got his back turned dealing with Dakota Kai, excuse me, and he turns around to count the three as Io Sky pins Charlotte, and Bayley gets rid of the evidence, and Damage Control really helped Io Sky survive that. I'm just happy that Charlotte didn't win the title. I think Io Sky's doing a great job with it, and I'm not ready to see her drop it yet. So luckily, they did not just thrust the title right back into Charlotte's face. That was really nice. But after the match, Damage Control did start working over Charlotte, started beating her down, and that's when she was saved by the returning Bianca Belair. So she is back. No repackage or anything like that with her. She's just back, hits the ring, disposes of Damage Control. I think they're kind of instrumental in her taking that time off to begin with. So she's got some scores to settle there. Came out and helped Charlotte, and Bianca Belair is back. She looked great, kind of wearing all gold, just like Lashley and her man have been wearing lately. And we will see what the future is for Bianca. I am at the point where I am really ready for a personality change in Bianca. I think that she's great in her role as a babyface and a role model to young girls. And, she pushes merch and she's, a star in that respect. But I think, WWE just sticking with that is kind of lazy. Let her branch out. Let her see what else she can do. You can always return to being a babyface in the future. I think if Bianca took on a little bit more of a serious attitude, killer instinct, and even maybe started aligning herself with her husband, that would be phenomenal. So we'll see if they do anything with her in the future, or if they just continue the status quo with her. But she has already had long championship runs as this babyface. So, and if she comes back now and just beats Io Sky and becomes the champion, what's different there? So I'm hoping that we get a little bit more variety with Bianca Belair now that she's back, because she's way too good to do what they did with John Cena with her. John Cena made a lot of money. He was the greatest of all time and all of that, but he was unchanged for so long that a lot of fans wanted to know what it would be like to see John Cena go heel. We got to experience that with Roman Reigns when it looked like he was going down that same road as John Cena. WWE turned him heel, and it was the best thing to ever happen to him. And he's going to go down now as one of the top 4 or 5 champions that company has ever had in its history, all because of that character change. So do that with Bianca. The girl's got it in her. She's big, she's strong, she's got a great look. Make her a heel at some point down the line, but maybe that's still a ways off. We don't know who Jade Cargill is going to wrestle at WrestleMania this year, if it's going to be a Charlotte or if it's going to be a Bianca or whatever. We don't know what's going to happen there yet. So maybe they're trying to figure that out. But at some point, I'd like to see Bianca be different, because when I look at her, I'm like, there's just exploding potential there for, all sorts of different characters. She's not one dimensional at all. She doesn't have to be this way. I know for a fact, if you make her into a killer, she will shine. So I want her to. We'll see. But SmackDown was pretty good, and it was really highlighted by that great main event. Triple H, since the get the fuck out of here Vince news of about a week ago or a couple of weeks ago, he's been killing it with the women. I mean, ever since it was that last little thing that Vince did, canceling the Tegan Knox match like 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, whatever that was, it feels like ever since then, the women have had a lot of representation on all WWE shows. And especially on Raw this past Monday, Becky Lynch having face-to-faces with everybody, women's matches, multiple matches in the ring, lots of character development with Piper and Chelsea. And then on SmackDown, we get a main event for the title. It's great. I think they're doing really well right now with the women, even though women's booking could still use some work. Maybe that type of stuff we will start to see get better now that Triple H does have full control. The women had a great division in NXT when that was his baby. If he can create something like that again, that match with Bayley and Sasha and the flowers and everybody in the ring and all of that was so great. So if he can bring some of that back, I'm hoping the women's division can really thrive. And in a year or two, we might see Sasha Banks come back in. I think she'll probably do an AEW stint first or whatever and can continue her run as Money or whatever. And then when she comes back as Sasha, she'll be able to ready to rock and roll there too, and maybe finish up her career in WWE and rekindle all of those friendships and rivalries and matches and all of that. So I'm excited for the future of the women's division in WWE, not so much AEW. Tony Khan's got some work to do there. The women do not get featured very heavily there, and maybe WWE now with all the work they're doing with the women recently, you got to think, if you are a up and coming women's wrestler, if you're somebody that's got some name value and you're unsigned right now, or you have the ability to go somewhere, or if you're in AEW and your contract is coming up, WWE's got to look awfully fucking attractive to a women's wrestler, because you're going to be featured and you're going to be exposed. AEW, they've got great women on the roster and stuff, but they don't have the women featured that much. A lot of women on social media are very, very critical of that, and Tony Khan is going by the numbers and, what the numbers do. So he doesn't feel like he's got room for any more than one or two women's segments unless they're super over or they're really good, like we're seeing Toni Storm become. She has been phenomenal in AEW with this new character. They've got a chance there to build around that. And I would if I was Tony Khan. But right now, WWE is crushing them in the women's department because of how much we've seen from them and how many women are getting screen time on TV, especially recently. And, Becky Lynch is a big part of that. Jade Cargill is a big part of that. And Triple H just being fully creatively in charge, unimpeded by the mustache maniac, is also a reason for that. And that puts us as fans in a really good position. So right on. Things are looking good if you're a wrestling fan. I have to go. I got to go to work. So I'm going to peace out of here. Thank you so much for being here. I'll cruise back to the chat, see if you guys have anything else to say. Good point, Doug Unfunny. Triple H has 3 daughters. And Shane McMahon has got like 16 sons, and one of them plays football for, is it Indiana Hoosiers? And he looks just like Vince. He's got that fucking chin and everything. So we might see one of them Shane McMahon boys wind up getting in the ring. And what if one of Triple H's daughters starts wrestling? That would be crazy if we get a McMahon, a Shane kid, and a Stephanie kid, and they both start wrestling. That would be nuts. That would be nuts. Jade Cargill versus Becky Lynch, for the NXT title. That would be all right. Oh, I got super chats to answer. Let me knock out these two. No, Martin, I'm not doing a watch along of Collision and Battle of the Belts. I got to get out of here and go to work, so I'm going to miss all of that tonight. But we will talk about that on Monday, which is our next podcast. We will be here tomorrow for a watch along, though, of Halloween Havoc 94. So join us. WWE fans got 5 more for me. Thank you for that, my friend. What if WWE did a ref fast count like they did with Jericho and Triple H on Raw in 2000 with LA Knight and Roman? You mean LA Knight like win the title with a fast count? You wouldn't be able to book it the exact same because I don't think you'd be able to have Roman come out and threaten the referee to reverse the decision or anything like that. Plus, I also don't want to see Roman get pinned until he officially loses the belt. But maybe a fast count with Roman getting the win, like getting screwed over. At least that would be different than the bloodline interfering and Roman capitalizing with a spear and pinning him. That would be different. So it's good. It's a good idea. It's a germ of an idea I think you could build around, but I wouldn't do it the exact same way as Triple H and Jericho on Raw. Jaquan, 2 more from you. Thank you so much. John Cena posted on Instagram and said he's not leaving WWE, but he is. I know he's not leaving WWE technically. I don't think John Cena is ever going to leave WWE in spirit, but he's definitely going to be leaving and going back to doing his movies and popping in from time to time. I never think John Cena will be completely gone from the WWE universe, where he will not have any contract whatsoever with them. I think he's WWE for life. He could pop back in at any time in the future. Hall of Fame coming up for him, all that jazz. But in terms of his immediate future, he is not going to be around that much longer. I think the longest he's going to be around, and this is really stretching it, would be WrestleMania. That would be the longest I can see him being around. But the closer we get to the end of the year, the more likely that is going to be the case. Because what's the point of John Cena taking another break now if we're just a couple of months away from WrestleMania anyway? So you might as well stick around for the whole thing. But I do think it is this current run that he's on will come to an end, and he probably will come back and do another one in another year or two or whenever, like Cena does, before, officially saying, all right, guys, it's time for me to retire the box of Fruity Pebbles and ride off into the sunset for good. When that happens, I'll be standing up and applauding, because I've always thought Cena was special. Colin Wright, appreciate you being here as well, man. First super on a live stream. Let's celebrate it. Hey, Greg, LA Knight, like Seth Rollins, is finally growing on me. I'm glad he's finally growing on you. He grew on me right from the beginning, but my big thing with him is I do question, his popularity is really, really strong, but it doesn't feel like it has that staying power like an Austin and Rock did. That's why I think it's critical for him to have a career-making performance against Roman Reigns, even in a loss or even coming away without the title, which is what's going to happen. I think that the match he has with Roman is going to be his true test as a main eventer. And if that match is well received by the fans, by his peers, by WWE management, then I think the sky is the limit for LA Knight. So it just depends. But I'm glad he's growing on you, Colin, because LA Knight is awesome and hilarious. Let me see what else we got. Is that all of them? Julia, thank you for that. Logan Paul beat Ricochet at SummerSlam. That's right, he did. So he's won 2 matches. He won that Mania one, and he beat Ricochet. I forgot about the Ricochet match, but the Roman one, what else did he wrestle? He had something else, didn't he? Has he lost a couple times? I forgot. But yeah, I did forget about Ricochet. Good point. Oh, of course, Colin. I read all the super chats. Thanks again, man. Yeah, and good point. As long as the actor's strike continues and there's no resolution there, maybe that's what John Cena is doing. Maybe he's just told WWE, I'll hang around until this shit ends and I got to go back. So the longer that goes on, the longer we get John Cena. What a treat. What a treat. But anyway, yeah, I got to get out of here. I got to head to work now. Thanks again, as always, for being here. And don't forget to join us tomorrow night for Halloween Havoc 1994 Watch